Alright, the 100 subscribers novice program. I've recorded this like 5 times now, so 5 times a charm. Let's get into it. So, introductions and context and just understanding a few things before I get into the program. So, first, thank you guys for subscribing. 100 subscribers, honestly didn't see it coming this early. So you guys are awesome, thank you very much. Secondly is whoops, I've fucking recorded this 4 or 5 times now, so if this ain't perfect or something goes wrong, I'm probably gonna fucking kill someone. Next is who and what is this for? So this is for beginners or novices, and that can mean a few things. It can mean someone that's never started training or not training yet, someone that's been training for a week or 2 or a few months, or someone that's been training for years on end but still hasn't gotten close to hitting their strength standards of a novice yet, which I'll go into in a second. But yeah, essentially, you know those guys in the gym who've been training for 4 or 5 years, who are still benching 1 plate, still squatting 1 plate, and still skinny fat. You are still a novice if you look like that, or you're that strong, basically, or that weak. So yeah, this is not necessarily just for guys who just started training, although it is primarily for those people. I would like to hope that you are so far out of the novice stage if you've been training for a few years, but if you aren't, then this is for you, man. Next is, this is a long video, but it will be worth it. It is going to teach you everything you need to know about your beginner and novice stage to do it correctly, because there are so many pitfalls that beginners and novices run into that never allow them to get out of that stage, essentially. Why not high intensity, or why high intensity? So I'm known for being a high intensity guy. I have my piss and vinegar series, which is all 1 set failure work, and so you might be thinking, what the fuck, like, why are you saying that volume is what I need to do? It is if you're a novice. When you first start training, you need to do more reps and more frequency in order to learn the movements, get your central nervous system more efficient at the movements, but also you don't need, sets to absolute failure or beyond failure to make adaptations when you're new. You can train more frequently with reps in reserve and make the same results as an advanced lifter doing high intensity training, if not more, because you can train with more frequency and recover. And again, you don't need that much intensity to make adaptations. You can get stronger quicker, and also when you first start, you don't have the kind of ligament or tendon or joint integrity to do sets to absolute balls to the wall failure. You potentially will injure yourself, especially if you haven't learned the movements yet, which is part of why we do all this frequency and volume. If you haven't perfected the technique and then you try to take that technique to failure, you're potentially going to break the form down and injure yourself. So ideally, start off with the novice program if you can, and then switch to high intensity. But if you are time poor, or just in yourself that you're too lazy to do 2 to 3 sessions a week that are potentially 2 hours long, you do all this volume, you don't have time for that, or you just don't have the mental energy for that, then yes, for sure, something is better than nothing. Start off with high intensity. I had a previous video that will show you how to start doing high intensity when you first start training as a beginner or novice. Just know it won't be as ideal as running a bit of volume to start with. Workout length is about 1 hour and 30 minutes to 2 hours, give or take, depending on whether or not your rest intervals are super long or how much rest you need in between exercises. But yeah, generally about 1 hour and a half to 2 hours, maybe a bit shorter if you can really squeeze it all in. Differences in humans. So this is a huge component that a lot of novice programs overlook, and there are many things that novice programs on the internet that I've seen overlook, including the one that I originally did when I was a novice. But one of the biggest ones is they don't take into consideration the differences in humans and how that relates to strength standards. So Danny DeVito and Brock Lesnar, they both start doing a novice program. Danny DeVito is not going to respond the same way that Brock Lesnar does. Brock Lesnar came out of the womb doing 100-kilo bench presses from the get-go, which is typically the novice standard for bench pressing. Danny DeVito would be lucky to ever bench press 2 plates or 100 kilos or 225 pounds for you Americans. For the rest of the video, I'm going to be going in kilos and plates just to make it easy, as I'm Australian. So you have to understand that the general strength standards for novice programs are typically 60 kilos, 100 kilos, 140 kilos, 180. So 1 plate overhead press, 2 plate bench press, 3 plate squat, 4 plate deadlift. And that's fine, but the average person, potentially, if you're the most average human on the planet, that might be your standard. If you're 5'9", about 75 to 80 kilos or 185 pounds for you Americans, that might be the strength standards that you look to reach in a novice program in 6 to 12 months. But everyone is different. Again, Brock Lesnar would fucking crush those standards. Danny DeVito would be lucky to ever hit those standards. In my case, when I first did my novice program, my bench press went to 100 kilos, which is the standard to normally hit in 12 months. I got that in about 4 to 5 months because I'm quite genetically predispositioned to be good at pressing. So my overhead press and bench press hit the novice standard very quickly, much quicker than the average person. But my squat and deadlift took a hell of a lot longer than the average person to hit those standards. And I had to get those standards outside of a novice program. I had to go into an intermediate stage, even to hit the average novice standard, which is a 3-plate squat, 4-plate deadlift. So you have to understand there is difference in humans. And in my written program that you'll see in the description below, and I'll go into that in a second, there will be a chart that will take into consideration height, weight, age, all the factors I can think of that will give you a general idea of where you might end up. But even then, take it with a grain of salt. There are so many factors that you have to take into consideration to really get a general idea of where you might end up, and it still might not be where you think it will. So strength standards on typical novice programs are an okay ballpark, but they don't take into consideration the differences in humans, basically. So yeah, that's one of the differences in my novice program, is you don't have these depressing the depressing expectations, or the expectations that are going to make you depressed when you don't hit them at the speed of everyone else or someone else. The next one is there are many tutorials in this video. Again, there is a lot of things that are missed out in normal novice programs, one of which is how to actually do the exercises correctly. How do you expect a beginner or a novice to do a bench press, a squat, a deadlift, these very technical movements correctly without actually learning them first? So there are many tutorials in this video that I'm going to go through, and again, it's going to make this video a lot longer than usual, and it might be a bit boring, but these cues and these little specific things that may or may not apply to you are worth knowing, and that way you can do them correctly and safely and keep progressing over time without stalling out due to some unforeseen technical issue in your lift. Next point is that this is the best program of all the novice programs I've seen on the internet. So as I've said, a lot of these novice programs, a lot of times, or most of the times, they're free, and thus they're not really, people kind of half-ass the writing process of them, and they miss out a lot of things. The best one I ever did was Alex Leonidas's novice program back when I was 18, so 8 or 9 years ago, and that was pretty decent, but there was a bunch of shit that wasn't in that program that, if I had known now, would have made that process a lot smoother and easier back when I was starting my novice program. And it's such a vital part of your training. It's such a vital stage. Realistically, the most important. It's when you'll make the most mass. So this one takes into consideration every single thing that I can imagine that would be vital to most people is in here. And yeah, it's really important that you get this right, because again, it will give you a lot of mass. You are looking to gain about 5 to 10 kilos or 20 potential pounds of muscle throughout your novice stage, give or take. If you start really skinny, it might be more than that. You might look at 20 kilos or 45 pounds of mass. If you're really fat, it might be minus that because you're looking to lose weight. But generally, this will be the most strength and muscle that you'll ever build throughout your entire lifting career, unless you decide to later on get on the year, because you'll be making the most adaptations you've ever made. The next point is this will take about 6 to 12 months, give or take. So you'll run this program ideally for about 12 months, but you might stall out earlier, and some exercises might stall out earlier than others. So like deadlifts, for example, could take all the way to a year and a half before you start really stalling out and having to change up the program. Whereas bicep curls, which are a much smaller movement that generally don't progress as fast and stall out quicker, because it's an isolation movement, the biceps are much smaller than the glutes and hamstrings, all these big muscles that go into squats and deadlifts, you might find that stalls out 4 to 6 months into your novice program, and that's fine. And that specific movement might then slowly wean over to the high intensity process that I mentioned earlier. But other movements will likely keep progressing up until about the 12-month mark, give or take. The next consideration is food intake, and this is probably the most important out of all of these, is how much food you are eating. So if you are a man of normal stature and normal weight, you're not morbidly obese, you're just, you got plenty of weight to gain potentially without being potentially super fat, then food intake is very important, and it is important that you at least start in a maintenance phase when you first start training. You don't necessarily need to be eating in a huge surplus when you first start doing a novice program, as you are so new to training that you can make adaptations even in a maintenance phase, essentially main gain. So lose fat, gain muscle, or just gain muscle without gaining any fat. Now, over time, however, maybe 3 months, 4 months down the line, you will need to start increasing calories once again as you start to slowly stall out on the weights. So let's say, for example, you start day one at a 40 kilo bench press. 3 months in, you're at a 60 kilo bench press, but the progression up until now has been really good, but it's starting to slow down a little bit. It might be time to increase the calories a little bit because your recovery might not be quite there, or you might just need more calories in order to keep getting stronger. So you want to start in a maintenance, because if you jump straight into a bulk, you will be very fat by the end of this 12-month process, because you don't want to be bulking for that long, especially as a beginner. But you can start in a maintenance, then slowly add 100 to 200 calories every few months just to keep the progression fresh and keep the muscle gains fresh. But don't jump too heavy into a massive surplus. Now, if you are overweight or morbidly obese, you can go into a slight deficit. It will impact your recovery a little bit. It might be harder to gain strength and muscle when you're in a calorie deficit, but again, health first. So if you are, say, 140 kilos and you're morbidly obese, get into the deficit. You do not want to bulk up at that point. And again, if you're that big, being in a slight deficit won't be a huge issue, because you'll have plenty of fat stores to give you energy, and you'll have plenty of calories still. If you're morbidly obese, a deficit, especially a small deficit, will still be a bunch of calories, more than the average person is consuming regardless. So yeah, you might not progress as fast, and certain movements might have a hard time progressing, like bench press, because weight moves weight. So like if you're 140 kilos, you might already be able to bench press 80 kilos just because it's a fraction of your own body weight. And plus your range of motion on the bench press will be much shorter than the average person, because you've got all this fat and padding to work with. And over time, as that fat regresses, your range of motion is going to increase, which make it harder on top of the weight going up. So you might find, if you're a really big fat guy, that the bench presses and other movements that are leverage heavy won't progress as fast. But again, don't be going into a surplus if you're morbidly obese. Definitely lose the weight. And you'll never see those muscles or those gains anyway if you've got all this layer of fat over them. But if you're kind of more skinny fat, it's probably better to just start at a maintenance and just slowly add calories. Try to gain, maybe gain muscle and lose fat at the same time for the first few months, and then start going into sort of a bulking process after that. Next is that this will all be written in a program, and some of the things that I might miss out here or don't have time to talk about in the video will be in there, including the strength standards chart to figure out where you might end up relative to your height, weight, and other different factors. But also just that way you can reread over this rather than watching the video once again. Or if there's certain parts that you forgot or you need to remember in a quick succession, if you're at the gym and you wanted to work out but you forgot like the exercise order or some of the exercise cues, then you can go over the written program, skip forward and go, oh, there's that program, that's what I need to do. And that way you don't have to spend a bunch of time rewatching the whole video, for example. So watch the video, then read the program, because reading oftentimes allows you to hold on to information better than the videos do. Last point is that the high intensity will come. So I get it. A lot of you guys probably come to this channel going, oh man, this high intensity thing's pretty cool. I can save all this time and effort in the gym by just doing one set to failure. But now you're telling me I need to do all this volume? Yeah, I wouldn't want to do it either. I hate volume training. But if I was a novice, this is what I would do, because it would be the most important thing. I only do what works the best, and in this case, it will be the Novice program with some volume parameters. And then, 6 months down the line, say the biceps start to stall out, put those bicep curls into a high intensity protocol. And then 8 months down the line, maybe the bench press stalls out, and you then wean that off onto high intensity, and then you'll have this whole new fresh thing to have fun with. And then eventually, after about a year or so, everything will be high intensity, and you'll be saving all this time in the gym, and you'll have all the strength and muscle gains out of the way from the Novice program. So let's get into the actual exercises and programming parameters. So A day. So what that means is essentially there are 2 different days throughout the program, A day and B day, and I'll get into that at the end of this brief kind of talking about the exercise selections and the programming, but understand that there's 2 different sessions and they have slightly different exercise selections throughout. So the first movement is the barbell box squat. This is a far superior version of a normal squat when you first start training, for a few reasons. One is they are safer. So when you go down on the box squat, if you fail, you don't just kind of slam into the ground because you're unbalanced and you've got nowhere to go. Ideally, or not ideally, always have the safety pins in the squat rack. Always squat in the squat rack and make sure that there are safety pins ready to go about 3 to 4 inches below your depth. And that will save you a lot of potential injuries. But in saying that, the box squat is safer because if you fail, it's not like a jolting fail. You're not like going down and all of a sudden, I can't get back up and I've got all this extra range of motion to go because I'm doing a free range squat. you're just sitting down and you can't get back up. You just sit down and you just sit there for, 1 to 2 minutes until the strength comes back to your legs, and then you can stand back up. Or if you just want to kind of dismount the weight, you just lean forward a few inches and bam, the weight is now on the safety pins and you can just dismount safely. So one, it is safer, and safety is the most important factor of training. Secondly, it makes progression consistent. You are going to the exact same depth every single time. So one of the problems with normal squats, especially for beginners and novices, is you will change height depending on the day. Sometimes you might do sort of a half squat. Some sessions you might go a bit deeper than that. Sometimes you go a bit higher. Sometimes you'll start with a super arch to the grass squat if you're capable of doing that. But over time you start going higher and higher, and you sort of cheat your progressions, or essentially you do cheat your progressions by increasing the range of motion, which is now doing a totally different variation that is much easier to do. But all of a sudden you've gained 40 kilos to your squat and you think you've gained all the strength, when in reality you just made the range of motion 5-6 inches higher, and really you didn't get any stronger at all. You just kind of cheated your ego, you cheated progression. So with the barbell box squat, you go to the exact same depth every single time, which means you don't falsely progress or regress depending on your depth. And then lastly, it is more balanced. So you aren't going to fall backwards or forwards due to instability or lack of strength through your squat. A lot of novices and beginners don't have the strength or balance to squat down without something stopping them halfway. So this way you don't have to worry so much about all the different technical prowesses, including your balance. You just worry about the technique and that's it. And more of a minor point, the barbell box squat allows you to train the posterior chain a little bit more than the standard squat. So a lot of people, when they first start training, have quad dominance. They have dormant glutes and hamstrings due to sitting a lot. And thus, when they squat, they feel it mostly in their quads and they never quite strengthen up their posterior chain. And that isn't good for when you want to start doing deadlifts, which we do in this program, but also aesthetically, if you've got these huge quads and no glutes and hamstrings, they don't look very good. So the barbell box squat's a bit more posterior chain heavy, allows you to train the quads, hamstrings, and glutes more in unison rather than being like super quad heavy like a normal squat. So that's an extra minor benefit among a host of other ones, but I won't go into all of them because the video would go on for a long time. So now into the parameters. So the warm-ups and the sets and reps and rest and progressions are very similar upon all the different exercises, just slightly different numbers essentially. But understanding the concepts will, on this barbell box squat, will allow you to understand the concepts on all the other exercises as well. So the warm-ups, you do about 3 to 4 warm-ups, quite a lot of warm-ups on the box squat because it is a lot more technical than a lot of other exercises. So get a lot of reps and warm-ups in before, make sure the muscles and joints and tendons are all warmed up and you understand the movement pattern. So you start, let's say for example, you are a 100 kilo box squatter, you start with a bar for about 12 reps, you go up to about 40 kilos for 10 reps, then you go up to about 80 kilos for 8 reps, and then you go into the working set of 5 sets of 4 to 6 reps. And we have a rep gradient in this program for reasons I'll explain more at the end of the program, or I'll explain now just to make more sense. The reason we have a rep gradient is so that you don't progress too fast and stall out. Or a lot of times with these programs in novice programs, you have 5x5, which means you have to progress every session with weight. You can't progress in reps, which makes you stall out a hell of a lot quicker. And that's one of the flaws I've found in novice programs is you can't really progress 2.5 kilos every single session on a box squat, no matter who you are. I mean, some people will, granted, some people will, but a good amount of people won't. So it is better to slowly progress through reps, need be, and I'll explain in a second when I get into progressions why that is. But yeah, understand that's why it's not 5x5, which is standard for a novice program. It is 5 sets of 4 to 6. Then we have 2 to 4 minutes rest. Lots of rest on squats. They're a heavy compound movement, and especially when you first start, your lactic acid is going to be really prevalent. So if you need a lot of rest, go for it. Mate, what are you doing? My fucking dog is up on my... Down. The next parameter is rest, and this is very important. If you under rest, you will not get the sufficient reps, or you'll start missing sets. And then also, if you rest too long, well, you're spending more time in the gym that you don't really necessarily need to be spending. So yeah, 2 to 4 minutes rest on the box squat, and this will change depending on the exercise. If it is a heavy compound movement, you need more rest. If it's a light isolation movement, you'll need less rest. And it can be give or take. If you need a bit more rest than 4 minutes, especially when you first start, that's fine. But try not to rest too long, and try to time your rest intervals, because a lot of times people don't have a great concept of time and will rest way longer than the ordained rest period. So make sure that you are indeed resting between 2 to 4 minutes, maybe a little bit longer. Progressions are 1 kilo to 2.5 kilos. So with this progression, for 2.5 kilos at the start will be very manageable. You'll be able to add 2.5 kilos every single session, or 5 pounds. I'm just going to be going in kilos today because I'm Australian. The written program will have the conversion rates more readily available, but for the ease of this video and me not rambling on forever trying to convert the numbers, I'm just going to go for kilos. When you first start, 2.5 kilos will be very manageable. You'll be able to add 2.5 kilos potentially every session or every other session, but after a while you will need to slow it down. As you start to get stronger and more adapted, you might need to start going a kilo at a time. And the way you would do this is, say for example you're squatting 100 kilos, and 1 week you do 5 sets, and the first set you get 6 reps, 6 reps on the second set, 5 reps on the third, 4 on the fourth, and then 4 on the last set. That means you're not ready to progress yet, because you haven't progressed through the range of reps. So that's why I have a rep gradient here. This way you don't have to progress every single session. You can progress through reps, which is a much more minor way of progressing, but a still very valid way. Otherwise, you will stall out way too fast, and that is one of the biggest issues with these novice programs. So until you get all sets of 6, or if it was 4 sets of 12, or 4 sets of 8 to 12, you would get all sets of 12 before progressing. So in this case, 4 sets of 6 or 5 sets of 6, and bam, you would go up 1 to 2.5 kilos. All right, there are a few cues to the box squat that are very important, so pay attention. First, make sure that the bar is set up evenly to your upper chest or shoulder level so that you don't have to squat too far down under the bar. Secondly, make sure that the bar is placed on your traps, not your neck. This is dangerous and less stable. Make a tight back. Walk back with very small steps in order to make sure that you're not making huge leaping steps that would potentially make you unbalanced and fall over. And then squat down to the box and make sure that you're pausing for half a second before standing back up. But make sure you continuously have tension throughout the entire body all the way through. Don't relax at the bottom. Keep tension, squat back up, walk it back in, hear a clang on the squat rack, meaning both sides of the bar have hit it, and you can dismount. The bracing is very important. Don't brace into the chest. Make a big fat belly breath that you can see just there. So breathe in through the mouth, as much oxygen as you can, then hold the stomach out and fat. Next is an issue that many people will run into in knees knocking inwards. First potential solution is to take your shoes off, which will stop your feet from pronating. If that doesn't fix it, then you might want to consider strengthening up your glute medius and minimus with a band. So depending on whether or not it is ankles or glute minimus, you will change the way of fixing it. But ideally, take your shoes off for every squat or deadlift movement. See here, now I have a band around my knees. This way, you will actively be forced to press outwards with the glute minimus and medius, if that is in fact the issue. If it is your ankles or your feet pronating inwards, lower the bands and put it around your ankles, and that will force your feet to stabilize all the tension throughout the feet rather than pronating the foot inwards. The next point is to make sure that you always have safety pins set up in order to fail the squat safely. If the pins are not there, you will be stuck at the bottom of the motion, and that can potentially be okay with a box squat in the sense that when you fail with a box squat, you can potentially sit there for 1 to 2 minutes, rest, wait for the muscles to recover, and then you could squat back up after 1 or 2 minutes like this. So I rest here for a minute, then squat back up when I'm ready to squat it back up. But that may never happen. You may not be able to ever get back up. So in that case, have the pins ready, and you simply just lean forward a few inches and bam, you've dismounted the bar safely. The last cue is, if you're a tall individual, squat onto a plate or two in order to make sure that you're squatting to parallel. Otherwise, you'll go very deep into the squat. And if you're extremely short, have plates under your feet. The next exercise is a barbell row or a cable row. So I have 2 options here. And in short, that is because some people do not have the core stability or the lower back strength to start with to be able to do a barbell row correctly. They'll get lower back rounding, or it will just put too much stimulus in their lower back and they won't feel their lats or the muscles we're trying to hit the most. In which case you would do a cable row instead, which is perfectly fine. alternative to the barbell row. Or you might be morbidly obese or very heavy, and thus your stomach is huge and your range of motion is extremely short with a barbell row, in which case a cable row might be a better option. Or if you can do both, you might want to do both on separate days. They do slightly things, and if you like doing both, then sure, you can alternate between the two or just choose one. Either are fine. Warm-ups, 1 to 2 warm-ups of 6 to 12 reps, a little bit less warm-ups because it's a less heavy compound movement. So again, you start with a lightweight at 12 reps, then you go to a medium weight at about 8 reps, and then you get into the working sets of 4 sets of 6 to 10. So a bit higher reps on the rows because one, if you're doing a barbell row and you're going really heavy with a 5x5 set, your lower back won't be capable a lot of times as a novice to keep up with such a heavy weight that 5x5 would permit. So we go a bit lighter with 6 to 10. Also that way, higher reps allows for a better mind-muscle connection. A lot of beginners and novices, mind-muscle connection and lats are poor. And if you can't feel the muscles working, that's fine. A lot of times when you first start, you just will not feel posterior muscles like glutes and back. And it's more ideal if you can feel the mind-muscle connection. But again, I always say your arms will never go from point A to point B without your lats contracting. It's physiologically impossible. So you just know that you will be contracting the lats. You just might not feel it ideally. And if you want to feel it better, maybe do the cable row. Rest intervals, 2 minutes. So maybe a little bit longer, a little bit shorter, but generally about 2 minutes. Progressions are 1 kilo or 2.5 pounds. So if you can, try to slowly progress. And again, your gym might not have micro plates. So it might not have 0.5 kilo plates or 1 pound plates for Americans. So in which case you might want to buy some. They're like 10, 15 bucks, very light. You put them in your gym bag and now you have these for life and you can do smaller progressions when need be. So they're a great investment. So if they don't have them, get them. And on the cable row, you might find that the cable stack doesn't have a option to do a 1 kilo microplate adjustment, in which case you have to go up 2.5 kilos, in which case just make sure you absolutely master all 4 sets of 10 before progressing that heavier weight. But ideally, lower progressions, slow and steady wins the race. Everyone's in a hurry to get strong and big as quick as possible, but again, you'll stall out really quick if you just keep trying to progress as heavy as you can and sacrificing form to progress that quickly. So yeah, keep it slow and steady and think about the mathematical progressions on a longer time frame. Yes, 1 kilo doesn't sound like a lot of weight, but if you do a barbell row, let's say twice a week or once a week, depending on if it's A day or B week, 1 kilo, let's just say once a week, 1 kilo for a month, that's 4 kilos, 4 kilos over 10 months, that's 40 kilos to your cable row. So that's quite a lot of strength. And on your squats, it's multiplied even more so because you're looking at like 2.5 kilo increments. So I've had clients who have started with a 40 kilo squat that have gone all the way to a 100 kilo squat in 2 months. And I've had other clients that are a bit slower than that, but generally over time, these small increments on a pretty frequent basis are going to add up a lot. So don't overdo it. The progression will come and it will stay more consistent if you are slower. The progression, slow and steady wins the race. And now onto the cues. Now the cues on the barbell row and cable rows are pretty simple. First, always make sure you have a proud chest and neutral spine. If you have a flat rounded spine, you will potentially put your lower back at risk, especially on heavy barbell rows. So do not do this. Do not round your back and don't flare the elbows. Pull the bar or the V-bar to your navel or upper stomach. Don't pull to your chest and flare the elbows. On a barbell row, also do not use too much cheating or lower back or legs to drive the weight up. Just simply use the back muscles. And the exact same applies for the V-bar row. Chest up, shoulders back. Don't concave the chest or round the lower back. Pull to the upper stomach or mid stomach depending on your arm length. Don't pull to the chest as it will no longer be a back movement. It will be very bicep driven. Also, don't half rep. Go all the way to the stomach. If you don't make it to the stomach, you don't bury the bar into your stomach, you've missed that rep and it's time to stop. And then lastly, don't round the back. Keep the chest up. Never round the back on just about any movement throughout this program. The next movement is the flat barbell pause press. So most novice programs have a barbell press, but they don't put a pause to it. And that is a poor choice when you have novices or just about anyone trying to do barbell presses. The pause will keep your progression standardized. And standardization throughout all programming, but especially for beginners and novices, is incredibly important. Making sure that we're not progressing or regressing depending on how much we're bouncing the barbell off our chest or how deep we are going on the squats is super important. So we do a half second pause or a full second pause on the barbell presses in order to make sure that we're not cheating progression. It might make you a little bit weaker temporarily than being able to bounce it, but in the long run, it will pay off. The warm-ups, 2 to 3 sets, a little bit more volume to warm up because the barbell bench press is a little bit more technical than the average movement. So get plenty of warm-ups in order to make sure that you are ready to do the movement. Your pecs and tendons and ligaments are warmed up, synovial fluids there, and you've got the bar path down and all the technical cues, and then you're ready to do the top set of 4 sets of 4 to 6. So slightly less volume than the squat because the press or the barbell press is a little harder to recover from. The rest is 2 to 3 minutes, so pretty hefty rest to make sure that you're fully rested and ready to go. You might need a bit more rest than that, and that's fine, just don't over rest. Progressions are 1 kilos to 2.5 kilos. So again, similar to the squat, big, heavy compound movement, you can progress pretty quickly, but a little slower than the squat. So you might find you can add 2.5 kilos to the bench press for a few months or, a few sessions or whatever it might be, but eventually it's going to stall out a bit quicker than your typical leg movement that are a bit heavier and a bit more, your legs are a bit bigger and stronger than your chest and triceps. So you will stall out a little slower or a little quicker rather. So make sure that you're progressing slowly and steadily like any other movement, but especially on the bench press. And more likely than not, you want to opt into using 1 kilo increments, or ideally, really, a lot of times you'll find that you'll just need 2 or 3 sessions on the bench press before ready to progress. So don't be impatient. Everyone wants that 2-plate bench press, but one of the most important way of getting there is making sure that you're slowly progressing up there. Otherwise, you're just going to stall out a bunch, and you'll stall out real early at 60, 70 kilos. So slowly progress up the weight on the bench press. And if you can, get even more micro plates. Go 0.5 kilo increments if you can, but 1 kilo is fine. And now for the cues. So first with the bench press, it is a good idea to warm up the rotator cuffs and rear delts and even back muscles to an extent because they play into the bench press quite a bit. So grab a band and just get some feeling and blood into those areas. Do some external rotation, do some rear delt raises, and potentially do some rows too by putting the bands around the feet just to get blood in the areas and pre-activate these muscles so that you can use them correctly on the bench. And rotator cuffs are a common injury if you don't do bench press correctly. Now first I want to show you how to retract the scapulas correctly. I can't do it with the actual bar, so I'm showing you with this broom handle. Do not keep the shoulders protracted. You want the shoulders to be pulled back as far as you can, chest proud. Thus, the humerus is stuck in the shoulder girdle. There's no movement for it to move around and potentially impinge shoulders and lose stability and strength. So retract the scapula and don't bench press too low. Don't bench press too high. Around the nipple line is the perfect area. So perfect example here is you're retracting the scapula, but you're flaring the elbows and the bar path is coming far too high up on the chest or too low. You want it to come down to about the nipple line, which will allow your elbows to be in a safe position. Do not flare the elbows. Then also you want to be taking 1 second pauses in between reps. Don't touch and go like you can see here. You want to spend about half a second to a second pause repping every rep to make sure the bench press stays standardized. Also, throughout the reps, make sure that your chest is reaching the ceiling. That's another cue that you want to think about, is keep the chest reaching the ceiling. If the chest starts to deflate a bit, you will increase the range of motion and you will stop retracting the scapula. Next is to make sure that your grip is absolutely even. Use the knurling on the bar to figure out where your thumbs go. Open your hands wide, get the thumbs, use the knurling as a guide. Wider grip for taller guys, closer grip for shorter guys. Then another point is to make sure that you are not using leg drive. You want to ideally straighten your legs when you first start using bench press, as leg drive will potentially give you false progressions and regressions. It is inconsistent. Just keep your legs straight and just purposely use the chest and triceps, no leg drive as a novice. Later on, you can add leg drive if you'd like. The next movement is the seated face pull. This is a very important movement for posture and developing nice aesthetic upper back muscles like the rhomboids and rear delts. And we do this one seated because the standing one requires a bit of body English in order to make sure that you're counteracting the weight with your weight. And that kind of takes away from the muscular contraction and the technique. So you start using a bit of momentum, and it's hard to standardize that too, because one kind of rocking back motion might be harder than another one. So we do these seated in order to make sure every rep is exactly the same, and you're really focusing on contracting those rear delts and rhomboids. One warm-up of 15 reps, not a heavy compound movement, and not very technical, so you're not going to have to do a hell of a lot of warm-ups. Then you're going to do 4 sets of 8 to 12, bit more higher reps, bit more volume because it's a smaller muscle. Rest 0 because we're going to be pairing this with a side lateral raise, which we'll get into in a second. Progressions, a micro plate or a full pin stack. So again, you'll be using a weight stack. So if there isn't a micro plate option, which a lot of stacks have nowadays, at the top of the plates you'll have like these smaller plates that you can put on and off, which will make it, you know, 1.5 kilos or 1 kilo heavier at a time rather than 2.5 kilos. But if you don't have that option, again, you can go a whole extra stack or an extra weight plate or whatever you want to call it on the weight stack, but make sure you've mastered the 4 sets of 12 first before making that big jump on a smaller isolation movement such as a rear delt or a face pull. And now onto the cues. Main few cues for the face pull are chest up, shoulders back, retract the scapulars, just like any other movement. This goes hand in hand with the bench press and will teach you how to retract the scapula better. And also think of bringing the chin or your hands to your chin. Don't bring the hands too low, otherwise you'll be sort of doing a cable row, and don't bring them too high because you'll be engaging the side delt too much and potentially impinging your shoulders. So hands to chin, elbows slightly flared in order to make sure you're hitting the rear delts, and don't concave your chest forward. That will hit the lats a lot more once again. Chest up, shoulders back, hands to chin. Quite a simple movement. Don't do these standing because otherwise you'll use too much momentum to pull or counterweight the weight with your own weight. And then lastly is just to make sure that you're doing a full range of motion. Don't half rep these. Bring your shoulders back as far as you can. Retract the scapula as much as you can. Get a squeeze at the top of the motion. Next movement is the dumbbell side lateral raise, and again we'll be supersetting this with the face pull. So this one is oftentimes not in novice programs. A lot of times novice programs don't have accessory work or bodybuilding work like biceps, side laterals, or anything that is bodybuilding orientated. I decided I'd put these in because why wouldn't you? I mean, you don't want to finish your novice program with a spider physique, essentially having no shoulders or arms or neck or traps. So you're going to see a lot more additions to this program that you wouldn't see in, say, a stupid starting strength novice program where it's just squats, deads, and benches and stuff. So dumbbell side lateral raise, this is supersetted with the face pull. So the face pull's for the rear delts, this is for the side delts. So training the shoulders from a 3D angle, not just from the front, making sure they are big and healthy and holistic. 0 warm-ups because they'll be warmed up from the shoulders should be adequately warmed up from the face pulls and just all the other movements that you'll be doing with the upper body before these. Sets and reps mimic the face pull, so 4 sets of 8 to 12, and then the rest is after you've done the side lateral. So you'll do the face pull, then you'll immediately go into the side lateral raise, and then you'll rest a minute, and then you'll repeat the superset 1 more time, or 2 more times, or 3 more times, depending on what set you're on. Progressions 1 to 2 kilos. So ideally get dumbbells that go up 1 kilo increments at a time, but at a certain point you'll get strong enough that you'll be onto the big boy rack where they typically go up 2.5 kilos at a time, in which case just again make sure you master those 4 sets of 12 before going up quite a large increment. And now onto the cues. A few main cues you want the side lateral raise is simply again keeping a proud chest and making sure that your shoulders are retracted. Don't use too much momentum throughout the reps. Try to keep it as strict as possible, else you'll get too much weight. Don't raise your arms too high as you'll impinge the shoulders and start using traps. And don't rest too much at the bottom as you'll get more reps than you ordinarily could if you just continuously do the reps back to back. Also, make sure you don't internally rotate the shoulders or pronate the hands too much, as that will impinge your shoulder joint potentially. Next movement is the strict easy curl bar wall curl. So these are about as good as it gets for the biceps, and the reason we do the wall curl is again standardization. So we want our butt, upper back, and head on the wall. That way we can't cheat or rock the bicep curls, do any cheat curls that will again potentially progress or regress throughout sessions making you think, why am I getting so strong, or why am I getting so weak all of a sudden? You just can continuously keep the form exactly the same on every single exercise, and that way your progressions will be honest. So yeah, the wall curl will make sure you don't do any cheating. The easy curl bar, just so that your hands are slightly pronated, and that way you won't have any ulnar pain. If you do a straight barbell curl, a lot of the times guys will get wrist pains from having their hands so heavily supinated. And lastly, it says if ABA, which basically means if you are doing an ABA week, which I'll explain after we go through these exercises, you would do the arms on those days. But again, I'll explain once I'm done with these exercises what that means in the program. Warm-ups, 1 to 2 sets of 10. You don't need a hell of a lot of warm-ups because your biceps should be pretty well warmed up from the barbell rows, but just 1 or 2 just to make sure you're ready to go. Sets and reps, 3 sets of 8 to 12, so a little bit less volume than usual because we'll be training the arms a little bit more frequently than the average, and also they get plenty of stimulus from the barbell rows and bench presses, etc. Rest 1 to 2 minutes, so not a huge rest, and you might not rest on the barbell curl at all if you're supersetting it with a tricep that follows, but we'll see. If you are doing them individually, then you would rest 1 to 2 minutes. Don't need heaps of rest because it's a light isolation movement. If you need a bit more than 2 minutes, that's fine, but don't overdo it. Progressions are 1 kilo or 2 pounds. So again, bicep curls, the bicep is a very small muscle. You can't progress it super fast. Everyone wants to get a really strong, heavy bicep curl with big bulging biceps, but it's not a squat. It's not a bench press. It's not going to progress that fast. You might take 3 or 4 sessions at a time before you're ready to progress up the weight, and that's fine. So ideally 1 kilo at a time. If you train in a gym that has set in stone weights for the easy curl bar that only go up 2.5 kilos at a time, then ideally look for an adjustable easy curl bar that you can put weight plates on, and that way you can micro load it. Otherwise, just master the 3 sets of 12 before going up that big 2.5 kilo jump as per any other exercise. And now onto the cues. Find a stable wall in your gym in order to do the wall curl. Make sure your glutes, upper back, and head are touching that wall at all times in order to save yourself from rocking the bar up and down. This needs to be as strict as possible to make sure progressions aren't regressing or progressing by alternating the form a little bit. So don't use momentum, don't rock back and forth. Stay on the wall in order to make it strict as humanly possible. Don't bring the elbows up too high throughout the range of motion. Keep them tucked into the body as much as you can in order to make sure that your front delts don't come into the equation too much. Next exercise is the cable tricep extension, if ABA. I'll explain again at the end of these exercises what that means. But the reason we do the cable tricep extension is that is the most safe, easiest way of training your triceps, and it is basically the bread and butter of tricep isolation movements. So you could do an overhead tricep extension with a barbell, but it's more technical, it's a little bit less safe, and this way, this is super easy to do, and it will give you the same gains realistically, especially as a novice, and you'll be getting plenty of tricep stimulation from bench presses and overhead presses and stuff of that nature. So yeah, cable tricep extension is very simple. You can superset this with the barbell curls if you want to save time, because these are long workouts. Otherwise, you can do them individually, that's fine. Mimicking the exact same parameters of the biceps, so the warm-ups, 1 or 2, just a few, but you'll have plenty of you'll be warmed up plenty from the bench presses. Sets of reps, 3 sets of 8 to 12. Rest, about 2 minutes once again. And the progressions are a little bit heftier because the triceps are a little bit bigger and stronger than the biceps, so they can progress a little bit faster, or quite a bit faster. So you might find with the tricep extensions that you can initially add 2.5 kilos to your triceps on a pretty regular basis, but after a certain amount of time, you're gonna have to slow that down. And if your stack again if your stack has it, add 1 kilo at a time if you can. Slow and steady wins the race. Again, that's a super important thing to understand. Slow and steady. And now onto the cues. As per most movements in this program, make sure your shoulders are retracted, chest is proud, and that the weight is controlled. You're not doing super fast explosive reps. And with the tricep extension, make sure that you're not using too much momentum, so don't swing the arms up and forth like this. Keep your elbows tucked into your rib cage so that you're just pressing through the triceps. But also make sure that you're not leaning over it too much and using your pecs or front delts to rep out the weights, or doing half reps. Do a full range of motion with your body leaning over it, but not leaning too much. If you don't lean over your bar enough and you stand directly up straight, you won't be able to fully extend the elbows as such. you won't be able to contract the triceps optimally. So lean forward a little bit, but not too much. Next exercise is the glute ham raise or the hyperextension. So this is an accessory movement to strengthen up or isolate your lower back, glute, and hamstrings, depending if it's a glute ham raise or hyperextension. Glute ham raise, as the name implies, is much more glute and hamstring dominant. Hyperextensions will train your spinal erectors a lot more. So realistically, you should do both on separate days, or one on and then the other one on, or back to back. Because they do slightly different things. And this way you can get a bit more volume and a bit more activation of the glutes, hams, and lower back that a lot of novices and beginners are poorly developed or underdeveloped. And again, they're very quad dominant. So this way your deadlift and squats will function a little better, and you'll be able to grow some bigger, stronger glutes and hamstrings. The parameters, the warm-up is very simple. 1 set of 10, just kind of get the movement pattern down, get your head in the game, get some synovial fluid in the vertebrae, but generally, you'll be pretty warmed up from just all the exercises you've been doing, and doing squats will have activated your glutes and hamstrings quite a bit. So just 1 warm up, then 2 sets of 10 to 15. So a lighter exercise, because the lower back here could potentially be at risk, and you don't want to go super heavy with the lower back, especially when you first start. So light and easy, two sets, 10 reps, pretty low in volume, higher reps, lighter weights. And then 1 to 2 minutes of rest. So again, pretty light movement, not too hectic here, so you don't have to rest as long. And the progressions will be 2.5 kilos. So you could go even lighter than that if you wanted to. You could start with body weight, for example, then you would add a 1 kilo plate or a 1.25 kilo plate, then go up to 2.5, then go to 5, then you'd hold, say, a 5 kilo and a 2.5 kilo together, up to 10, and just keep going up and up and up, until eventually it would just be obscene to keep holding on to like 3 20 kilo plates, for example. And at that point, you'd have a very strong lower back, glute, and pair of hamstrings. And now on to the cues. The glute ham raise or hyperextension, either variation, I've done exactly the same, so I'm just going to show you the glute ham raise. Essentially, very simple, very similar to the rest of the exercises. Make sure your chest is up and proud, retracted scapula. Don't round the upper or lower back throughout this movement, else you will not get the spinal erectors involved. Also, make sure you're doing slow, controlled reps. Don't do fast, jerking reps, especially when the lower back is involved with the movement. That can potentially be hazardous or dangerous for your lower back. My dog is really making a scene here, but focus on me. Make sure that you control these reps, slow and controlled, chest up and proud. Don't round the lower back. Very simple. And then the last movement is the planks. So this is the most bang for your buck ab movement. It trains the abs as a whole pretty decently, and it also teaches you how to brace, which is very important for a beginner. And you don't want to be doing a bunch of different ab exercises at the end of such a grueling, long workout. So just 1 plank. No warm-ups, no warm-up required, because it's quite a light, easygoing movement. And in the sets and reps parameters here, it's a little different. So we're doing 1 set to failure here. So we're doing a bit of failure work, which is almost an introduction to high intensity for some of you guys. And it'll be 60 to 90 seconds to failure. So once you break 90 seconds, it'll be time to progress. If you get under 60 seconds, it'd be time to regress. So just like any of the other rep and set protocols, if you get under that amount of reps or over that many amount of reps, it's time to progress. Same with here. And then the rest is 0 because it's just 1 set to failure. The progressions are 2.5 kilos. So you would start with body weight, for example. If you got 92 seconds, 95 seconds, or whatever it was beating 90 seconds, then you would increase it by 2.5 kilos, which would bring you back to probably about 60 seconds, of which then you progress back up to 90. And then once you beat 90, you go up another 2.5 kilos. Very simple. 1 set to failure. Another very simple movement in the plank here. Make sure there is a relatively straight line from heel to forehead or head to toe. Don't have excessively round back or high hips or low hips. Just make a straight line from feet to head in order to make sure your lower back isn't getting involved too much or you're making the exercise too easy. When you put the weight on your back, don't do it as you just saw me do it, where you are already in the plank position, as it will just simply fall off. Put it on your back as you're laying down, then put it down off the side when you fail. Don't go up into this position, else the dumbbell or plate on your back will just roll down and smack you in the back of the head. So make sure you disengage with your hips down, not up. Now we're on to B day. So this is the second day you'll do. And again, at the end of the session, I'll show you how you program all this. But this is the second variant of this session, so, or the program. So again, we start off with box squats. Everything's very similar, except we do 2 sets of 4 to 6 this time instead of 5 sets. So we back off some of the volume of the squats because we're doing deadlifts today, and you don't want to be too pre-fatigued to do a very heavy deadlift set or a few sets of heavy deadlifts. And also, a lot of these novice programs have every single day a 5x5 set of squats to start with. That can be very difficult to recover for, even for a weaker novice. And it's also very mentally hard to just do that over and over again. So a little bit easier today with the squats, and that way you can then go into the deadlifts, which are quite difficult. So yeah, and the rest is a bit shorter because you're only doing 2 sets. Repeat the process, progressions, the cues, everything's the same. Now we're into the trap bar deadlift or hex bar deadlift. So again, this is part of why we did easier going squats, is to make sure that we had plenty of energy to now do these. So the reason we do trap bar deadlifts instead of normal deadlifts is that when you first start, a conventional deadlift can be very technically difficult to learn because you're going that much extra depth. So you're going an extra foot or so lower, which can put the lower back at much more of a risk and make the technique that much harder. And especially for really tall guys, that can be a real issue. A lot of tall guys never really want to opt in for conventional deadlifts just because it's that much harder to learn. So there's nothing wrong with the trap bar deadlift. I'd argue they're actually superior in many ways, apart from not wanting to spend a bunch of time trying to learn technique for this arbitrary standardization of range of motion. They are better for training your traps because, as the name implies, because you're holding to the side rather than in front of yourself, it is a little bit less posterior, so your quads get to take some of it, which takes some of the stress off the lower back, and your traps get to take a big amount of stimulus from these, which allow you to get a big upper back and traps potentially from these heavy weighted stretches on the deadlift. So yeah, a few reasons we do it is it's better for hypertrophy and size, but also it's better for safety and ease of access and to learn. So the parameters, first is the warm-ups, pretty extensive warm-ups because it's less technical than the conventional deadlift, but it's still a potentially dangerous movement if you don't do it right and you're not properly warmed up because it is heavy and the lower back is involved. So 3 to 4 warm-ups of 6 to 10 reps. So you start light with the bar for 10, then you just slowly go up there as you've done every other exercise. Just slowly make your way up. And again, if it's the first day you're training, start off too light. It's better to start off too light to learn the exercise than it is to start off too heavy. So with all these different exercises, but especially the trap bar deadlift, when you first are starting the first few weeks, start off too light and then make your way up to a heavier set as you get more accustomed to the exercise. Sets and reps are 2 to 3 sets of 4 to 6. So a little bit of leniency here with the sets, because sometimes you might find that the first set you only get 4 reps on the deadlift, or maybe you'll get 6, but then the next set you only get 4, because there is a big diminishing there is a huge diminished rep total a lot of times on deadlifts as you go. It's not like squats and bench press. You could start off with the first set getting 6 pretty decently, and then all of a sudden the second set you only get 4. So you'll have to auto-regulate the volume a little bit. If the second set is going really difficult and you feel like the third set you're not even going to get 4 sets and you're going to miss, or 4 reps rather, and you're going to miss a set, you're only going to get 2 or 3 reps, then you'd only do 2 sets and that's fine. Or if you're just really tired or it's really difficult, or maybe you're feeling under-recovered that day or whatever it is, the deadlifts are very, very difficult movement to do. They take a big toll on your central nervous system. So yeah, if you want to just go for 2 sets, that's perfectly fine. Or it might be a week where you're doing deadlifts twice, in which case you might opt in to just do 2 sets on the 2 different days rather than 3 sets. Because if you're doing deadlifts once a week, sometimes you only do deadlifts once a week in this program. And again, I'll explain later what that means or how that comes across. In that case, yeah, you could probably do 3 sets. But if it's a week where you're doing deadlifts twice, you might want to do 2 sets to make sure that you're fully recovered. So a little bit of leeway there to work with. The rest is, yeah, you could potentially need more than 4 minutes on these, because when you first start, they're very cardiovascular. You're going to be out of breath. You're going to be potentially lightheaded. You're going to be very sore and amped up. So yeah, 2 to 4 minutes rest. But if you need to go over like any other exercise, you can. Just don't go too long over. Don't rest 10 minutes unless you really need it for some reason. But ideally 2 to 4 minutes rest. Progressions are heftier, again, because this is the most compound movement you do in this program. So potentially you could progress 5 kilos every session on these deadlifts, or every other session on the deadlift. Eventually that will slow down. You'll have to go down to about 2.5 or potentially even 1 kilo as you get to the tail end of this program. You know, once you're deadlifting 160, 170 kilos, you might find that you need to microplate it. But when you first start, you can make plenty of weight progressions on such a heavy movement such as the trap bar deadlift. And now onto the trap bar deadlift cues. There are quite a few of these, and it is a very important movement to do right, as it can be potentially dangerous. So first and foremost is the well-known cue of always making sure that you have a neutral spine. Do not round the back on the deadlifts. Record your sets for the first few sessions, or all the sessions really, to make sure that your back is always staying straight, especially as you get heavier and heavier. Best way to make it straight is just simply think of sinking the hips down and creating a very proud chest. That will naturally create a neutral spine, but make sure you're recording them just to make sure, because people will deadlift with round backs unbeknownst to them. They'll think they're going straight, but in reality their back is rounded. Secondly is bar path. Make sure that you are in the middle of the bar. Middle of your foot is in line with the bars where the plate's attached to. Otherwise you'll be too far back or too far forward, as you can see here, and the bar will move around, which is unsafe. Too much instability. And from the straight on angle, make sure that your feet are lined up correctly also. Use the bend in the bar as a reference point. As you can see here, my feet are lined up with that, and that's generally a decent stance. Maybe wider or closer, but make sure that your feet are even. Otherwise, if you're staggered to the side, you'll see the bar flying up once again from an unstable bar path, which is unsafe on the lower back and just in general. Also, make sure that you are gripping in the correct position. If you grip too far forward or too far back, once again, the bar will rock around and will give you a false range of motion. So make sure that your hands and feet are lined up with the middle of the bar where the weight's attached to. Bracing is also incredibly important on the deadlift, just like the squat. You can brace at the top, get your breath, then go, or if you want, you can get down, round your back so you can get a better brace, then straighten the back out and lift up. It's entirely up to you, but make sure you have a fat, braced core before you lift. Otherwise, the spine will be at fault. Next movement is the chin up or the V-bar pull downs. So I have two options again here, because some people just simply can't do a bodyweight chin up, in which case you would be better off opting in for the V-bar pull down. So again, I hate to keep repeating myself, but a lot of these other 5x5 programs don't take into consideration the differences in humans, and thus they say just do chin ups. It's like, okay, if you're 150 kilos and you're morbidly obese or massively overweight, you're not going to be able to do chin-ups. You have to start with a V-bar pull down until you lose the weight or get the strength. You might start off just really skinny fat, and you should be able to do chin-ups, but you can't because you're just not strong enough yet, in which case there's nothing wrong with the V-bar pull down until you have the adequate strength or weight loss to then do a chin-up. So now the warm-ups, we have 1 to 2 sets of 6 to 10. So with the warm-ups, you need to take into consideration that some of you guys might be able to do sets of chin-ups as your working weight, but as a warm-up, it won't be viable. So you might have to add bands to the chin-up in order to make it light enough that it's a warm-up, because you don't want to pre-fatigue it too much, or you would use the V-bar pull-down in order to warm up for the chin-up. So you might have the strength to do a chin-up, but you might not have the strength to use it as a warm-up. So take that into consideration. The sets and reps, 5 sets of 4 to 6. So very similar to the squats and bench press. Next is rest, so 2 to 3 minutes of rest, give or take. The chin-ups can oftentimes take more than that. They're very lactic acid heavy, so you might need more like 4 or 5 minutes when you first start with the chin-ups. Progressions are 1.25 kilos to 2.5 kilos, so this will depend on your pull-down stack. You might not be able to go up 1.25 unless you have those micro plate adjustments. But if you're doing chin-ups, you can refer back to one of my previous videos where I show you how to very cheaply add weight to your body. A lot of gyms will have a belt that allows you to add plates to it and then allow you to add weight to your chin up. But if it doesn't have that, get a compression belt or a weight belt that is for, you know, squats or deadlifts. A lot of gyms will have that. If they don't have that, you're gonna have to buy one. And then you can get a karate belt, which is like $5 off of eBay. And in one of my big brain tidbit videos. If you just go through my playlist, you'll be able to find one where I show you how to combine a weight belt and a karate belt in order to create a chin up and dip belt, which just allows you to add weight to your body as you progress through the chin up. So yeah, 2.5 kilos to 2.5 kilos. Again, when you first start, you might be able to add 2.5, but as you progress further and further, make that progression a little bit less intense. All right, first cue on the chin up is not to use too much body English like that. You want to keep everything strict and keep the body tight, but don't be pulling yourself up with cheating form. Secondly, make sure that your chin is getting to the bar or at least over the bar. If your chin doesn't reach the bar or go on the bar, you have failed that rep. And don't half rep. Don't go like eyes to the bar. Make sure you're going over the bar. Same exact thing goes for the cable row or the cable pull down rather. Make sure that you're pulling at least to the chest or at least beyond the chin. If the bar is going above the chin, that is a failed rep and it's time to stop. So make sure you're doing a full range of motion, at least past the chin, ideally to the chest. Secondly, make sure that you aren't concaving the chest. Keep a wide, proud chest. Retract the scapulars. Keep your chin up. Don't pull back too far either, otherwise you'll end up basically doing a row. So make sure that you're staying somewhat upright. And again, make sure that you're not pulling too high up. You need to pull all the way down past the chin. Also, make sure that you aren't pulling in front of yourself. You want to pull the bar to your upper chest. Same thing goes for the chin up. The bars need to reach your upper chest. Also, don't use too much body English on the cable row. Just like the chin up, keep it strict. Just use the back muscles, don't use the body. Next movement is the overhead press. So we do this one seated or standing. Some guys will just not have the capacity to do standing overhead presses. You might not have the mobility. You might be very overweight, and thus the hypertension makes you feel like you're going to pass out when you do standing ones, in which case there is nothing wrong with seated. Seated allows you to work much more on the muscles that you want to target rather than working on these different technical cues that are required when you do standing. So either are fine. And this overhead press is basically the equivalent of the bench press on the A day, but rather than training the pecs in the bench press, we're training our front delts and shoulders. The warm-ups are 2 to 3 sets of 6 to 10. So quite extensive on the warm-ups for the overhead press, because especially when you're doing the standing variation, it's very technical. So you want to make sure that you're warmed up. The shoulders are kind of a flawed joint, so a lot of times people will have issues in them. If you don't already have issues, you can potentially develop them if you don't do pressing movements correctly. So really warm up, make sure there's plenty of synovial fluid, and make sure the movement pattern is ready to go for the working weight. Then you would do 5 sets of 4 to 6 or 6 to 10. So again, if you're a big guy and you feel like you're going to pass out from these really heavy overhead presses, or it's really hard to do heavy sets of 4 to 6 with the technique correctly, because a lot of times those heavier weights will break down your technique on such a technical movement such as the overhead press, then 6 to 10 is perfectly fine too. So a little bit of leeway there, again, to make sure that I'm adjusting for all types of different human beings. The rest is 2 to 3 minutes. So yeah, a bit more hefty rest because it is a heavy compound movement. If you need a bit more, that's fine. Just don't go over once again. Progressions are 1 kilo to 2.5 kilos. Overhead press can be a very stubborn lift. It can take a long time to progress. It might be more akin to a bicep curl in the sense that you might need 3 or 4 sessions before you're ready to progress the weight. So be patient. Don't try to progress it too fast, because the front delt is nowhere as big as a pec or a quadricep or a glute. So you can't progress these super fast. At the start, you might be able to add 2.5, but realistically, try to stick to 1 kilo with these. And now onto the cues. So the first and most important cue on the overhead press is bar path. Make sure that your elbows are tucked under. This will allow you to press directly up and back versus pressing forwards and then back, which is poor technique. You'll lose stability, you'll lose strength, and potentially injure yourself in the process. So don't have your elbows tucked back like a bench press, like in this case. This way, or if you do it this way, you'll have to press forwards and then backwards. Easier to just lean back slightly, keep the elbows under, and that way the bar path will be almost directly straight forward. Also, don't lean forward, that would look awkward as fuck, and the bar path will be terrible. Next is width consideration. You can't bench press, or you can't do a bench press grip on an overhead press. Otherwise, you won't be able to tuck your elbows under, and it just doesn't make as much sense for the biomechanics of the movement. So go quite a bit closer than you'd ordinarily go on a overhead press. Also, get under the bar first, as you just saw there. Don't grab the bar preemptively, pulling it back. This is a better angle. Don't pull it off the rack. Get under it and then press it up. That way it'll be stable, ready to go. You'll be fully tucked in under the bar, ready to press. Next movement is the face pull. Repeat the exact process as previously. You'll then add the face pull to the side lateral raise. If you're feeling sore or under recovered, you could potentially skip this a day or two a week, but ideally do these 2 to 3 times a week, as they are a light exercise that are easy to recover from. And now we are again still repeating the strict curl. There are plenty of other bicep variations you could do, but this is the most bang for your buck. And when you first start, you just really want to work on the most bread and butter movements. Obviously, I'm adding a few extra movements than usual into this novice program, but I don't want to switch up all these different bodybuilding variations that you can have fun with in the future. You can have plenty of variations and plenty of different movements to do when you switch over to high intensity training. But for now, we're just going to stick to the most basic movements, the fundamentals, build as much muscle as we can, and then work on the details later on. Same thing with the tricep extensions, repeat the same thing. If BAB, again, I'll explain what that means after these exercise selections have been explained. Now, this is another accessory movement that is more bodybuilding orientated that a lot of novices will neglect until they get a few years into their training. And by then, they're like, fuck, why didn't I train my traps and necks or my neck years and years ago when I first started? So this is something that you do not want to neglect right now, because they are two very, very important muscles in the traps and neck. They are very important for looking big, strong, powerful, etc. So the shrugs and neck curls, they will be supersetted together. We will do a 1 to 2 warm up of 10. So just generally get some blood in the area. These aren't super technical, or they're not necessarily very hazardous. Potentially the neck could be potentially hazardous if you are doing the technique wrong, but generally you don't need a hell of a lot of a warm up. Just make sure that the movement pattern feels okay. There's no twinges in the neck or anything when warming up. And then sets and reps, 3 sets of 8 to 12. So very similar to the biceps and side laterals, much more bodybuilding orientated in the rep scheme here. Rest 1 minute between supersets. So you would do the shrugs, then you would immediately go to the neck curls. Then you would rest about 1 to 2 minutes, and then repeat the superset again. Progressions are 2.5 kilos, so shrugs should very easily be able to add 2.5 kilos every session, or not every session necessarily, but every time you're ready to progress, every time you are doing 3 sets of 12 efficiently, then you can add 2.5 kilos. Same with the neck curl, although with the neck curl, if you can definitely add a slower progressive scheme. So you could start with 1.25, then 2.5, then 3.5 with a dumbbell or something, and then you could do a 5 kilo. So you could go slower if you want to, but you can very well also just go up 2.5 increments with the neck. But again, make sure you really mastered the weight first that you are on before you progress up 2.5 kilo margins on any lift, but especially smaller lifts. And now onto the cues. So for the shrugs, make sure you aren't half repping. Do full range of motion, none of this half rep bullshit. All the way up, all the way down. And also make sure that you are doing them strict. Don't use power shrugs just yet. As a novice, you will not have the spinal integrity to do these heavy, lunging, sort of quad dominant power shrugs. Next is the neck curl. Make sure you're doing a full range of motion with controlled, slow reps. Don't want to see people doing like super explosive neck curls with your abs getting involved like this. Keep the neck as safe as possible throughout this potentially dangerous movement if you do them wrong. I don't want you at the edge of the bench too much. And then as far as adding weight, get a tea towel or something soft that you can put on the weight plate in order to make sure you don't have a giant hole on the top of your head from the weight plate. Also, put the weight plate, get where the middle of the weight plate starts, or the hole, put that on the forehead. Don't have the edge of the weight plates on the forehead, make it the direct middle of it. And then lastly, we have the planks. Again, repeat the exact same process. A lot of repetitive exercises on this day, but again, these are all the most bang for the buck movements for the given muscles, so there's no need for me to switch them out. Keep it stupid simple, easy to adhere to, and yeah, that's the parameters and the exercises. Let's get into the last part of the video. So now we have clarifications. So first we have progress, the reps, then the weight. So we've already gone through that. Other novice programs, they will just make you progress weight every single session. That is not possible, especially on a bicep curl or a light movement like a side lateral raise. If you could add 2.5 kilos to your biceps every single session, you'd have a world record bicep by the end of the year very easily. Not even then, you'd give it a month or two, you'd have a world record bicep. So you have to understand that different movements will progress at different rates. You need to be slow and steady wins the race. That is a big mentality you have to take here. But don't be impatient, be patient, and yeah, progress through the reps, not the weight straight away. And that way you won't stall out so quickly. That is something that other programs have neglected so heavily. I've yet to find one that really takes that into consideration, unfortunately. Next is stalling out and the strike system. So eventually you are going to stall out, and then you have to regress the weight and go back up again. So the way this works is, let's say for example, you reach a 100 kilo bench press, and you spend 5 sessions on the bench press trying to progress through the reps, and you're just not able to get to all 5 sets of 6. You're not able to then progress the weight in the first 5 sessions of doing it, or you've done 5 sessions of bench press, you haven't been able to progress weight. That is a stall out, and it's time to now regress down about 10% of the weight you're doing. So if it's 100 kilos, you go down to 90 kilos, that's 10% of 100. And then you slowly progress back up to 100. And the next time you get to 100, hopefully you progress past it. So 100 kilos, stall out 5 times, go back down to 90, progress up from 90 to 100 in 2.5 kilo increments, or even potentially smaller increments, just to kind of give yourself a bit more recovery, potentially learn the movement a little bit more. And then by the time you get to 100 again, you should be able to progress beyond that. But if you strike 5 times, that is your novice stage over for that movement. 100 kilos is now your novice lift. That was as far as you got on the novice program. It is now time to switch that movement specifically, not the whole program, but that movement onto the next stage in the programming, which would ideally be high intensity training. Now, for some of you, you might find that, let's say, for example, you get to 100 kilos and you strike out twice. You might be like, all right, that's pretty much it. That's about as far as I go. And there's a few caveats. One is if you're not eating enough, you could strike out really fast. You could stall out really quickly. And if you, let's say you get to 100 kilos and you're not in a huge surplus still, you might have plenty of calories to then work with. You might add an extra 300 to 400 calories a day, which will then break you through that plateau and make you potentially get to, say, 120 kilos. But if you're already in a huge bulking phase, you're already really high in the calories, your sleep's on point, your nutrition's on point, all these different things in your life, you're not too stressed, all these different factors are taken into consideration and they're all on point, and you're still stalling out, then yeah, it's probably time to move on. If you're stalling out super early, like say for example, you're a normal sized man and you're like stalling out at say 60 kilos or a 1 plate bench press, then something's probably off. You shouldn't be stalling out that early. You should go off the chart and go, okay, am I close to what would be considered for my height, weight, age, genetics, etc.? And if you're not, then it's not necessarily the program or the movement, it's something else in your lifestyle. It could be your nutrition, your calorie intake, your sleep, whole host of things. So make sure when you're doing this program, everything else outside of the gym is really nailed, because what you put into this program, you'll only get out if everything else is in order. And I'll be making a few different nutritional videos coming up, how to eat for the average bloke who just wants like an easy, adherable program for their diet. It will probably be based in the vertical diet, as that is a very easy, well-balanced way of going about eating. And I'll also talk about kind of, sleep and other lifestyle factors that will tap into your recovery or help your recovery. That will be very important in this novice program, because it is a pretty hefty program. You have to make sure everything is on point, else you will strike out very quickly. Next point is ABA, BAB, ABA. So what that means is week 1, let's say you just start the program day 1, you would start with an ABA. So you would do session A on Monday, session B on Wednesday, session A on Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Then the next week you do BAB. So you do B on Monday, A on Wednesday, B on Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. And then you would just repeat that back and forth. ABA, BAB, ABA. And the way this works with your arms is if you are basically with the arms, it's very simple actually. Whether it's ABA or BAB week, basically your arms are done on Monday or Friday or Tuesday or Saturday, depending on when you decide to train. And on the Wednesday day or the Thursday day, you will not train your arms. So if it's ABA week, you'll train arms on A's. If it's BAB week, you'll train arms on B's. Very simple. Don't train arms every day. Train them on the doubled up day. And yeah, you can't really train on Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, because then it's gonna not work mathematically. So either Monday is start or Tuesday is start with a day in between. That's the way you're gonna want to do it. Next point is rewatch and reread in the beginning. So make sure that you understand all the concepts in this video in detail. And again, at certain points, you might want to jot down notes that you are really specific to you. Like if it's a squat and you have a hard time with keeping your knees out, you might need to write that down and be like, all right, add bands to knees. Or if it's I'm morbidly obese and I can't eat in the surplus, I need to eat in the deficit, or whatever it might be specifically to you in this video that has addressed a specific issue for you, jot that down in your notes, but also rewatch this video or reread it in the beginning to make sure you really understand these concepts, because this will make and break this program. You have to understand all the different facets. They're not that complicated, but there are quite a few. Next is hard labor jobs and calorie deficits. So if you do a hard labor construction job that takes a lot out of you, this program can still work, but you might find that you can only do 1 or 2 times a week rather than the big 3, because you just don't have the recovery or the calories necessarily in order to get in the gym and do these long grueling workouts after a potentially hard day at work. So you might do a Saturday session, that way you won't have a whole day work like before going to the gym, or you might do a morning session before you go to work, or whatever it might be. But yeah, try to train 1 or 2 days a week if it is too much to do the big 3 or the 3 days a week when you're doing a hard labor job. And also make sure the calories are high, because when you do hard labor jobs, you're looking at potentially 500 to 1,000 calories burnt a day, give or take. That's going to eat into your recovery. So if your maintenance calories are 2,000, you burn 1,000 a day, you now need to eat 3,000 just to be in a maintenance. You need to eat 3,500 to be in a surplus. So really eat a lot if you're doing a hard labor job, because you're expending a lot of energy, and don't train potentially as frequently, or potentially lower some of the volume on some of the harder movements if need be. For example, the squats, rather than doing 5 sets, you might do 3 sets, or the bench press, you might do 3 sets. So yeah, you're gonna have to slightly auto-regulate the training depending on what you can recover from. This can also apply to people who are doing combat sports or just sports in general. If you play basketball 3 times a week, or if you box 3 times a week, you might only be able to do this 1 or 2 a week, and you're going to need more calories to make up for the extra expenditure in your sports. And again, calorie deficits. If you are morbidly obese, this is fine. Otherwise, do not be in a deficit. Be at least in a maintenance or a surplus. You need to be eating quite a lot to make a lot out of this program. The next point is grip and forearms. So with this program, just by proxy of holding on to the rows and the deadlifts and bicep curls, etc., you'll be able to develop pretty decently strong grip and strong big forearms. But caveat to that is if you have very short fingers like I do, or if you are a female and have small hands, you might find that you need to use straps, in which case you might not get a hell of a lot of grip training or strength from this program. In which case you might need to then wait until you get to the high intensity stage where you can start being more specific with your grip. But I don't want you doing grip isolation movements while doing this program, because again, there's plenty of grip heavy stuff already in here that will probably suffice for most of you to develop pretty decently strong and big forearms, until eventually you switch over to high intensity and can get more specific. Next is calves. This program doesn't have any calves in it because I didn't want to add any unnecessary movements to a program that is already quite long and hefty. So if you want to train your calves, you want to get your calves bigger, I ideally do them on your days off. That way you don't have to add them to an already long grueling workout. They'll just make it even more daunting when you have to do this extra exercise at the end. And they won't get much intensity anyway because you'll be pretty spent. So do these on your day off. Probably won't want to go all the way to the gym just to do calf raises. So just do them at home, do one-legged calf raises. When you want to get more specific later on with high intensity training, you can add a bunch of calf raises. But for now, just really work on the main muscles you're looking to get bigger, and then calves can come later. And at the end of the day, calves are very genetically biased anyway. So, you know, if you kind of either have them or you don't, you can do something with them. You can develop them a little bit, but if you have horrible calf genetics, you're not necessarily ever going to get big Dorian Yates calves. Next point is transitioning to HIIT. I've essentially already covered this, but again, in brief, eventually you will be able to do the high intensity training. You'll be able to save all the time in the world, the 20-30 minute high intensity sessions once or twice a week. That will be coming, but for now, do the Novice Program. Get your linear Novice Program results out of the way first. And lastly, rewatch this video a few times. I've already gone through that, but again, do that because it's great for the algorithm. All right, thanks for watching. So that's it. If you stuck with me the whole way, and you're indeed about to embark upon the best Novice Program on the internet, get ready for the most strength and muscle gains you'll ever make, because you make the most gains when you first start and it goes downhill from there. So you want to make the most of it. This will be the best program, the best decision you'll ever make as far as your training goes, especially if you're very new to training. And thanks for the 100 subscribers. You guys are awesome. On to the next milestone, and there'll be plenty of things to come. And until next time, see you cunts later.